come to offer you some tobacco, water spirit, for all the healing that you do and all the people that you house and all my relatives that you house and feed, and really enjoying this cool breeze that's coming because you cooled it off for us. Make an offering for the rooted ones, flyers, swimmers, your runners, your crawlers, your air spirit, your water spirit. So appreciate. Call upon my guides. Call upon Grandmother Eagle, Grandfather Grizzly, Grandmother Hummingbird to aid me in this. I call upon the rooted ones as well, the air spirit as well. And I call upon my kokums and my mosoms to help me in this process. And from my heart to yours, from my spirit to your spirit, from my mind to your mind, from my soul to your soul. I offer this in a really good way. I bow my hand in humble gratitude for your many, many blessings and healings. I'm here to seek healing as well. My respects. My name is Mabel Nipshank, Ni Gladu. I'm from a small Métis community in northern Alberta called Fishing Lake, Alberta. I'm one of 8 siblings. I've Métis Cree. I've lived here for about a half a century on the coast, so I now consider it my home. A majority of my time, I have done frontline work. Most of my working years, I've done frontline work, mostly working with women. I've worked downtown East Side for many years. I believe my work started probably around 1994 when I first started working down there. And I first started working at Crabtree Corner, which is a drop-in center for single moms, and also the only free daycare there is, as far as I know, in BC. And I definitely have seen a lot in my time. Definitely have seen a lot of change within the downtown East Side. But I think if I was gonna definitely share a point, if I wanted to get my message across, I think it is the fact that it's often portrayed in a very negative light. It's always portrayed with, definitely a lot of crime, etc. While there's so much human suffering that happens down there, there's also a very strong sense of community. For example, you run into people and it's just like, have you eaten today? If the person says no or whatever, they'll look in their bag and they'll pull out something and they'll share that whatever they have. Also, to say, okay, you know what, they're serving food down here today, they're handing out blankets down here today, they're handing out shoes down here today, and in that sense, they really are strong. People down there really help each other out. There's a real strong of sisterhood, of brotherhood. I just sort of ended up working down there, and the people that I met, I really started to really enjoy it, and it's just amazing. I was amazed at the number of the things, people often portray there's the people that are down in the dirt, and they called it skid row, which I really hate. I really hate that term, but you'd be surprised at what you'd find. There's people there with degrees. There's people there that have skills like you wouldn't believe, musicians, artists, and once you get to know them and they share that with you, just something happened along their lives, and it's something happened along why they ended up down the road they ended up. One of the things I find too is there's so much guilt and shame around it for them because they feel there's something wrong with them. And, the ones that are especially in bad shape, sometimes, families try to come and see them. try to connect with them, try to come and take them out for lunch or connect with them, they'll go hide because they don't want their loved ones to see them in the condition that they're in. You know, I have a good understanding of the suffering down there. I have a good understanding of people struggling with addictions. And one of the things I have definitely witnessed is that bond between mother and children, mother and child, is so strong. No matter how much drugs they take to try to numb that pain, it's still there, right? It's still there. You hear them crying out. Some of them will hear children crying. Some of them will hear children crying out for help. And that's when I feel powerless and hopeless. Walking on Mother Earth, you know, we don't get a chance to walk. We're always walking on cement. But there's times I will take off my shoes and socks and walk on ground and walk on the lawn or find some trail to walk on. And that's where I get my healing from. And I really believe it does work. Like I said, I work in a shelter and, you know, go out and throw the garbage out, you know, go out in the back alley and throw the garbage out. And, you know, they've always come to help me. You know, they come, hey, let me help you with that. And don't expect anything in return. I know, like just those small acts like that, that definitely mean a lot, you know. And again, they help each other out in any way that they can. They make sure that they share their food with each other. Those kind of acts is that what I've seen, you know, or help each other out. I mean, those acts of kindness go a long ways, and I would like to share a couple of stories. He was walking, this is back in the interior. He was walking home one night and he seen this man sitting on the railroad tracks, and he stopped to talk to him for a little while, you know, and he looked in and he pulled some socks out of his backpack and gave him a dry pair of socks, and he goes on his way. He said years later he was at an AA meeting in Vancouver, and this man stood up to talk, and he said, years ago I was ready to suicide. I was sitting on the railroad tracks when this man came along and gave me a dry pair of socks. And that act alone got him to change his mind, and he got to go seek help. And eventually that's where he ended up, was, you know, in an AA meeting years later, or, you know. Living in northern Alberta, we are living in a small town in northern BC. Actually, I had moved to BC before that. And I have 3 sons, you know, 3 sons are all 1 year apart. And the kid's dad used to work in camps, and he'd be gone a couple of weeks, you know, come back on a weekend or whatever. One of the things I'm very, very grateful for, you know, and it stems back to my kukum and my mushum. I was raised mostly by my kukum and my mushum, spent a lot of time with them. And I think if it hadn't have been for them, my life would have been very different. I definitely would not have the open heart that I have now. I would not have the heart and that love in my heart that they modeled. Yeah, they modeled by example. And in particular, my grandmother was very, you know, was always reminded us, if I complained about someone and if I said something about this person hit me, or this person said that about you, Kukum, or this person said that about one member of my family, and she'd go, kiam in Cree, meaning, it kind of means it's okay, you know, it's okay. And again, like I want to bring it back to, you know, I've always sought healing in nature, and I've always went out to nature, and if something bothered me too much, I just talked to the universe, talk to the Creator, speak from my heart, ask for help with areas that I'm struggling. Definitely I'm very steeped in my spirituality. You know, that's the route that I followed after that. And after that, things started to get better for me and somewhat easier. Of course, you know, it's like for example, I hear that bird singing. I take that in. I let it penetrate my soul and my mind, and I really enjoy it. You know, I'll walk down the street and I'll see beautiful flowers, and I'm just amazed at the beauty, and you know, there's so many different hues and colors and shapes. So I'm really present in that, right? And the moments, like for example, spending time with my grandchildren, and that really helped, and that grounded me, you know, present in that moment and that love between me and my grandson. And there's so many deaths that definitely has happened, and you know, it stems to all stems from childhood trauma, stems from poverty. It stems from the legislation policies that have kept us in social, economical poverty, the colonization of our people, the colonialism that took place, the thievery of the land, etc. And if you look around, it's all of it is being destroyed. As we speak, as we sit here and look at how much digging is happening, digging up Mother Earth, polluting the lands, polluting the water, and we're so close to the land. We're so, we have such a huge and deep connection as Indigenous people. We're so close to it. It destroys us too. It destroys our soul. Mother Earth has the same things that we have in our bodies: zinc, copper, etc. All that, water, soil, pieces of rock. We're made from stardust, our people believe, which coincides with the Big Bang Theory, and I really do believe in that. But I think it's like, when all these fires happen, it is Mother Earth. It's like when we have a fever, something goes wrong with us, we carry a virus or something, bacteria, whatever, we will develop a fever. These fires that happen, Mother Earth was getting rid of all those oils and all the stuff that, that's destroying her, and that's making her sick. The floods is the same thing. We take something bad, like, we get rid of it by vomiting, by diarrhea. Mother Earth is, I really believing, is doing the same thing. So. Think you got enough?
Yeah.
Was I okay?
Great.
Oh,
Thanks.
yeah.